Okay, Dr. Stephen Vorholt here again. So we've made it to the third panel of our wizard in our imaging viewing software here. So this is the 3D objects panel, only necessary if we're going to be importing something like an intraoral scan or a denture scan or something similar to that. But really important to understand the different ways to bring these files in. So with this patient, we have intraoral scans for the top and the bottom. And I'm going to first click the import button, and this pops up, the object import. Now, the first thing it's going to ask you is what the object should be named. There's different objects, and depending on what we choose is going to tell the software what you might be using this for. For example, a wax-up prosthetic might be something that we're going to toggle on and off while we're planning some sort of implant restoration, for instance. Antagonist wax-up, anatomy, antagonist, bone graft, bone surface, there's all different options so that things can be labeled and named themselves. You also have the option to choose other and type your own name. So if you're bringing in something that is outside of those options, or maybe you're bringing in multiple versions of something. Okay, so for our case, we're going to bring in the antagonist because when we work on this patient, we're going to place an implant number 19. So that is going to be called the anatomy. So the anatomy will be the mandible. So first, let's bring in the maxilla. So we'll call it the antagonist. Now we have some different options for object position. What's toggled already is matching. What that means is when we bring this in, it's going to ask us to match this to the patient's 3D rendering. If we want to keep the original position, this might be useful if we previously exported the model to, let's say, Exocad 3Shape Mesh Mixer, and we did some edits to it outside in a different software, and we want to bring it in the exact same 3D space. That could be quite simple. But generally, if we're bringing this in directly off of our intraoral scanner, we're going to do the matching protocol, okay? And then this drop-down will change. Once we bring one object in, it will ask us if we want to bring it in the same field that we brought in the first one. So for instance, let's say you have an intraoral scanner and you did the top and the bottom and they're in occlusion. You did a bite as well. You can overlay by bringing in the top to Acteon, and then when you import the lower, you can select in this third drop-down button, move the same as the upper, and it will also automatically do those X, Y, and Z 3D movements, so you don't have to go through the matching process again. Okay, so for this one, we're going to do the antagonist maxillary scan, and we're going to use our matching protocol. We'll click OK. It's going to pop up a file picker, so we'll choose our maxilla and open. And it's going to split the screen into two screens here, okay? So we have our rendering screen on the left, and we have our intraoral scan on the right. If you can't see the rendering, if you ever open the screen like this, it just means it's been toggled off in a previous step. So just go ahead and choose your rendering here, okay? So there's a couple different ways we can do this. We can either do fit points, which we'll do with the mandible, or we can let the software and the AI in the software try to do it for us first. So without touching anything, we don't have to manipulate the model. I'm just going to click this button that says assisted. And what the software is doing is it's trying to determine where the teeth are, and it's extracting the teeth from the scan, and then it's going to try to find the best fit or the best match using the model that we just imported. Okay, so while it thinks for a little bit, usually takes about half a minute, maybe less, it's going to try to find the best fit. So not bad, right? Immediately we can see on the overlay that that is lined up on the correct jaw, and it looks like it's lined up very, very well. Okay, now how do we confirm that? Well, that's what these three slices are for. So if we were to zoom in, I'm using my right mouse button and dragging in, what I'm looking at is the outline of the teeth in our model. So that white line is the outline of this model up here, okay? And I want to make sure that it's an intimate fit to the patient's 3D data. As we scroll back and forth with our mouse, we can see it's an intimate fit with the teeth on either side, and same with the canine, and so on. We can do the same in these other screens. We can take this slider and move back, and we can see intimate fit with the cusps of the molars and the buccal surface of the molars. As we come forward, intimate fit with the cusp of the premolars. We're ignoring this part on the inside because what this is a hollow model, if you see the hollow model. So we're just seeing simply the underside of that model. What we're focused on is around the hard tissue in the X-ray and on the outline. And last but not least, the axial. As we come close, what's nice to see is when the tooth pops up in the image slice, we also see that outline. So for instance, right here, when the cusp starts to show up, so does a nice intimate fit of that model. So the AI assisted option works very well, and works especially well for maxillary scans where there's even more data for the computer to pull from. We might struggle a little bit with scans that have more scatter, or mandibular scans like in this patient's example where they're in full occlusion for the scan. So once we're happy, I'm going to move my face over here. Once we're happy with this, do make sure you hit apply. If you hit cancel, or if you navigate to a different panel, you may get an error later because it never actually officially moved that 3D object. So we're going to go hit apply. And so now we have that overlaid for our treatment planning. So if we toggle off the 3D rendering, we now have the patient's model, and it's correctly in space lined up with the patient's x-ray. Okay, you can right click on this model, and there's some options that pop up. We can change the color, for instance. We could change it to any color you choose. We can change the transparency so we can see through it a little bit if we would like to, if we want to have implants in there. We can also toggle wireframe. So if we want to see how many triangles, how accurate that was, we can toggle that back off. And then we can rematch, rename, duplicate, and even calculate the volume. So it might be nice to change the color. We can hide the object if it's in the way, and move it around or delete it even. You can also do the same exact options if you're in the data import panel. You can go back to it at any point during your working with the case. We can left click on the little toolbar options there, and it has the same options here for each panel. They also have this little eyeball that toggles on the ability to view it or not. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring in another, and this one is going to be the anatomy, and we're going to do matching again, and we're going to showcase how to do matching when we're not using the assisted. So here we have the mandible, and I can zoom in with my mouse wheel, right, on both screens. And I'm going to, for my own sake, I'm going to tip this up and get a good look at where the teeth are. And here, of course, he has teeth in full occlusion. So what it's going to ask us to do is to put markers to showcase and help the software overlay the two models. So we're going to find a really clean area of the 3D rendering, and we can even look from behind if we need to. So for instance, this distal lingual cusp tip, okay, on number 31 is really clean in the rendering. There's no scatter overlaying it. So if I want to make it easy on myself, I can rotate. Just make sure when you're rotating, you're clicking off the model on that blue background. Otherwise, it will actually drop a point, which we don't want to do. So the point is on the distal lingual cusp there, which is this cusp here. So if I just click once, notice they both have the number 1 and they're both blue. Okay, so I'm telling the computer that this point on the rendering matches this point on the imported scan. So we could find some more points from the inside. For instance, the distal lingual cusp of number 20, and we can do the same thing here. Green, green, number 2, number 2. Okay, let's find some more points. Let's flip this model back around. Because they're in full occlusion, they have some overjet and overbite. It's kind of hard to see, but if I tip up just enough, I can probably see close enough to this corner. And we have to get close, but not exact for this to work. So here, this is tooth number 26, the distal incisal line angle. So here, that's similar to this spot. So 3 and 3. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on 23. We'll find the distal incisal line angle on both. Okay, so now we have 4 points, which are pretty well spread out. Okay, and we could get 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, but usually as long as you have 4 kind of well spread out, we should have enough information. So once you're happy with the number of points and where you have them selected, we're simply going to hit fit points. Okay, now before we hit fit points, notice the delete marker button. If you, for instance, accidentally clicked the wrong spot and now number 5 is here, you can delete the marker on the left. That just means it's going to delete the last one you put on the left screen. Okay, we're going to go ahead and hit fit points and see the initial proposal, if you will. So looks pretty good. Looks kind of like our assisted one. And it's just using those 4 points. So if it matches all of those, the rest of it should line up if we were accurate with our points. Let's go ahead and take a look through our slices. And I'll even zoom in a little bit here. And we can see very accurate as far as when the cusp tips come in. And let's take a look at the coronal slice. and that looks like a really nice stitch. Okay, if you're off by just a little bit, but you were pretty close, there's a button that just toggled on here between the fit points and the assisted called the best fit. And this does not show up when you do the assisted because that is completely software driven. But if you get it close, let's say there's some scatter, or you just kind of went to the mid facial of teeth and got the model to be close, if you hit best fit, the computer will kind of take over and make some final tweaks. So let's go ahead and hit that and focus on the model here in the 3D rendering and see if it moves at all. See how it just moved just a little bit. And so that's making a final guess. Now it looks really tight and really accurate, right? So that looks really good. So sometimes you might get it pretty close with the fit points and then hit best fit, and the computer will kind of do that final little tweak for us as well. Okay, we're going to make sure we hit apply. And now we have both of our models, top and bottom, overlaid on the patient's CBCT. At this point, you can turn off the rendering because this is more accurate and useful for what we're going to be doing when it comes to planning an implant in space number 19. Okay, so that's our data import phase. We're going to go ahead and click next step and move on to CPR settings and pano curve generation.